Adora opened the door. And who did she see at the door? It was Kunle, her husband. She was shocked to her bone marrow. Welcome to part 2 of the story, where Adora was married to an armed robber. Adora's heart raced as she stumbled upon damning evidence hidden in her husband Kunle's room. The realization hit her like a ton of bricks. Her husband, the man who she had loved and trusted, was an armed robber. Fear and panic gripped her as she realized the danger her family was in. And she knew she had to quickly act and protect herself and her children. So she left the room. Her heart raced with uncertainty. Fear, anger, and determination battled within her. She couldn't ignore the precarious situation she was in. Yet, the thought of staying with her husband risked her children's safety. With a heavy heart and mind reeling with fear, Adora began to formulate a plan. Then she thought to herself, should I report him to the police? No, she thought. If I do, the news will label my family and my children as children of the thief and wife of a thief. Should I stay and pretend as if nothing is happening? No, it's too dangerous, she thought. God, she gasped. What would I do? She thought to herself. I think I should leave town for good. Should I? Oh God, what would I do? She thought to herself. She needed to get herself and her 2 children, Aisha and Tunde, far away from her husband. Then she thought about her mother and then called her mother and told her everything. Then she and her mother planned her escape. Then she told her husband that she needed to visit her sick mother, fabricating a lie and an excuse to leave the home and escape this looming threat. She actually visited her mother and then arranged how she would escape from her husband. So quickly, she went to the bank to withdraw her secret emergency fund. Adora then booked tickets for herself and her children, determined to start a new life far away from the shadow of their past. Arriving in Ghana, Adora and her children stepped out of the car to move into their new apartment and their new life. Now in Ghana, Adora is faced with a new set of challenges. The money she had saved up could only afford to pay for their new rented apartments. Transportation to Ghana could only sustain her and her children for some few months. Money was beginning to become tight. And then she had to make ends meet. So she had to take on any job she could find to provide for her children. But despite the stumbling block on her path, she had this sense of freedom in her newfound independence and a sense of possibility in the air. Meanwhile, back in Nigeria, Kunle, Adora's husband, was very angry when he found out Adora ran away with their children. He started calling everyone he knew about their whereabouts and was very worried. But he vowed he would find Adora and punish her. Years passed and Adora had grown and worked her way up the career ladder. Now she could provide a comfortable lifestyle for herself and her children. She was living the life she thought she deserved. But her children had questions about their father. And every time they asked, she would explain to them that she would tell them the right answers at the right time. Her daughter Aisha took it calmly, but her son Tunde always had questions about his father, and Adora would always tell him to wait until the time was right. But Tunde was not patient enough with his mother's answer, and Adora saw the look on her son's face and warned him not to do anything stupid. Adora was worried as she saw the worried look in her son's eyes. She hoped her son would not relive the past that she once dreaded. As the years passed, Tunde grew into a bright and curious young man, his mind filled with questions about the absence of his father. Oblivious of the truth of why his mother had fled, he turned to the internet searching for answers on Google, on Facebook and other social platforms. It was eventually on Facebook he contacted his father and then reconnected with his father. Unaware of the dangers lurking in his father's past, Tunde eagerly reached out, craving for a connection with the man he had only known through stories and distant memories. Meanwhile, Kunle, relentless in his efforts in his pursuit of his wife and children, traced their tracks back to Ghana through his son Tunde. One day, while Adora was all alone at home, she had a knock on the door and she went to answer it happily. And lo and behold, Who was at the door? It was Kunle, her husband. She was in shock. Kunle, her husband, had been watching her for some days, for he had arrived in Ghana earlier on. He knew when the kids weren't around, and so that day he knocked on the door and Adora opened the door. As soon as she opened the door, he followed her in with his arm folded. Adora gasped in fear at the sight of her husband Kunle. In a cruel twist of fate, Kunle, her long-lost husband, had finally caught up with her, and pushing her in her new home and threatening her very existence, for she dared not defy him. Feeling helpless, Adora braced herself for the worst, her heart pounding with fear. All her long-hidden memory came flooding back. But Kunle had other plans for Adora. In Nigeria, he was caught and jailed for 7 years, just some few days after Adora escaped to Ghana. But the whole experience changed him. Somehow deep within him, he knew Adora did the right thing by running away. She did it to protect herself and the children, for he knew his imprisonment would have stigmatized his family. But he was still hurt that the woman he loved so much and protected ran away with his children. Just as he stepped into Adora's house with arms folded, he took one look at his wife and all his anger vanished. Then he stooped down and begged for her forgiveness, telling her all his plight and what he had gone through in her absence. Kunle was confessing his crime and vowed to become a good husband if she would only take him back. Adora was confused. What was going on? Is he begging me? Her head was beginning to spin. She couldn't understand what was going on. Is this for real or play? Is this a joke? Tunde heard it all. He was shocked that his father was a notorious thief and was in prison. It then dawned on him why his mother fled away. His mother fled away to protect him and his sister, and this saddened him. Tunde felt so much guilt that he unknowingly brought harm to his mother. He wondered what he was going to do, for he felt his mother was in harm's way. So quickly, he ran outside to the back to look for a tool to help his mother, and so he picked up a stick and ran back to the door. But as soon as he got to the door, he saw through the opening just as Kunle was about to raise his hand to touch his mother. He felt his father wanted to injure his mother, so he ran inside and raised his stick and hit his father on his back. Kunle did not see this coming, and in a split of second, Kunle came crashing to the floor. As Kunle lay hot on the ground, his back got broken. Adora was in shock and rushed to her husband's side. Her heart turned between the love and loathing she had for this man, but tears streamed down her face. Adora rushed Kunle to the hospital, but it was too late. Adora was not happy with her son for meddling in matters that do not concern him. The doctors had told her that Kunle would never walk again. So her husband Kunle lay paralyzed and broken, and he had become permanently crippled, and Adora had to spend the rest of her life taking care of her crippled husband.